overwhelming. But basically this is kind of the layout, and then this is an example. So we can look at the example because it's a little less busy and I think it's a little less stressful. So this is your name, and then right under it, you want your contact info. Most people don't put anything besides like their email, their phone number, and their LinkedIn if you have one. Most people don't want to put any more personal info, which is totally fine. Your education is going to come first. So first you'll put UT because that's that's what you're kind of doing right now. What your major is, your expected graduation date. You can put your GPA. It honestly really depends. If it's for a job, they're not really going to care. If it's for something that's more academic related, they're going to care what your GPA is. Then if I know at least one of you is a first year, I think actually multiple of you are first years. If you're a first year in university, you can put your high school next. So where Universidad de Duesto is, you could put your high school. But in general, with high school stuff, that's going to last you your first year in college. And then by sophomore year of college, you want to take that out because you really want to be focusing on college stuff. I also want to recognize that like with the pandemic, it's probably been harder to get involved in college, like programming and organizations than maybe normal. And so you might have a more high school heavy resume because of that. And I think employers and people completely understand that. If you were to take classes during the summer, would you include that? Yes, you would include your GPA. And y'all can totally ask questions in the chat, or if you just like want to unmute and ask at any time, feel free. So then you're going to have your different experiences, and what that honestly, that breakdown can look kind of in some ways however you want. So I usually put relevant experience, and then I'll put like maybe leadership and activities, academic projects. That's really probably if you're trying to apply for like a research position, something like that, you want to highlight that you have kind of a track record of that. But basically, in general, same with the education, you want everything's going to be in order of most relevant to, or not relevant, most like recent to least recent. So as you can see, this experience, it's June 2020 to present because Cam is working at IBM right now. And you see that the format is the name of the organization, then their title. So he's an operations intern, and then where it is located, which is in Austin, Texas. You know, he did an internship for accounting at Paramount, and that was in Los Angeles. So he puts that there. And then the dates, it was a summer 2019 internship. And then, so that's kind of for jobs, clubs, anything that's most relevant. And then maybe the least relevant or the less relevant is going to go into kind of a lower category, like leadership experience and activities. I typically do it based on what is relevant for the job, which means I create a different resume for every single like job I'm going to have. Like you have your basic resume, which is what we're going to try to get through today. And then you are going to tweak it for every single job. So for example, and I can show y'all my resume if you want to see it as a kind of just a real life example, but like I actually was just last week updating my resume, and I added, and I was rewriting it so to apply for like maybe retail experiences. So I changed it so that my most relevant experience at the top was like listing my current retail experience, and then other stuff lower. What Michelle's referring to, some people call like a master resume or master list, and then you can tailor it for every single resume for every single position. Then at the bottom, you can put additional information. Mine says like, what does it say? It says like skills, awards, and honors and interests. And as you can see from the additional information, there's a huge range of stuff. So some people put like their computer skills. If you're fluent in multiple languages, you can put your interests, you can put your work eligibility. Another key thing, especially if you're just in college, is that your resume should be one page. I am a strong believer in that because having read many resumes at my previous job, employers don't have time. They might spend 15 seconds on your resume. They're looking at potentially hundreds. So, one page resume, one and done, most relevant stuff on there. So, like, to me, the interest in the work eligibility would be two things that you would maybe want to cut if your resume is pushing over a page. There's always things you can trim, and that's just always what you want to be aware of. I think another thing to notice about Cam's resume is to me it's busy, but it's not too busy. He intentionally puts spaces between every single experience, and so you also just want to be cognizant of that, of not kind of overcrowding. So this is kind of the layout. Do y'all have any questions about kind of the general layout before I go into kind of the bullet points of what you want to talk about? Yeah, Michelle, go ahead.
Something that I'm going to throw in. So you have a resume and you might spend hours or even days making it look beautiful. You're going to put all this information in there. And like Jocie said, not everyone is going to want to take the time to read it. So whenever you go on job interviews, you always want to assume that the person interviewing you has not read and memorized your resume. So whenever they're talking to you, they might ask you questions that are on your resume and you don't want to skip it. You actually want to say, well, I've done this, 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 and this. Always refer back to things that are in your resume, because sometimes the person who reads your resume works for HR, and then HR is human resources, and then human resources might send me Jocie's name and contact information and say, hey, call this girl. And I've never seen her resume. And I'm the one interviewing her, which sounds really screwed up. But if you don't know that before you go on a job interview, you'll kind of fumble over the questions, because they might ask you questions that are on your resume and you might be insulted, going, they didn't read about me, but I'm fabulous. But it's very common that they don't.
And that is another point of why you should bring copies of your resume to an interview. Whenever in-person interviews start again, you always want to have copies of your resume so you can give it to the person, so they do have something they can refer to, or at least even if they don't have time to look at it while they're interviewing you, then when you leave, they have like this kind of guide for them to follow up with later. So thank you, Michelle. So are there any other questions about like layout or?
I do have a question. So I've seen that some places use like ATS systems. I think that's what they're called.
Mm-hmm.
Is this McCombs template something that could like pass through that? I know that sometimes they get flagged for their format.
What field are you talking about, Ashley?
Oh, I'm not sure. I just saw that like whenever I was kind of looking into internships and stuff, that was something that somebody had mentioned to me.
Okay. Like in that, like they like run the resume through to see if it's like kind of to a certain formula.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. No, I would say that I would imagine that this would be fine, because McCombs is a really well established business school, and I know a lot of people use this model. Like one of the other GAs, Darlisa, she told me that like this is what she based her resume off of. So a lot of folks use it, not just Macomb's VA people. And so I think it would be fine with like ATS.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and a lot of those systems are also designed to see if you copied and pasted someone else's resume off the internet. So they're trying to make sure that they're not getting fake applicants who don't actually have a good background.
Right, kind of like plagiarism. So then so basically, like we said, one page, that's really important. And the thing that I want to emphasize now, like talking about kind of the bullet points, is you want strong action verbs. So the great thing about this Macomb's template is like the first page is like leading you through it. The second page is an example. And then the third page is kind of more detailing about COVID and how to handle that, which is really great. And then the fourth page are action verbs. And the action verbs are so key because it's not really helpful to say like worked on a project for, winter dance or something. That you want to like kind of you want to have a stronger verb. You want to say, like if you were the leader of the team, you want to say like executed a project, customized something, designed. And so these different verbs are really helpful so that you're not just using the same ones over and over again. Worked, organized, etc. Another thing that's key is putting in numbers. And I don't know if they do that. They do that here. So you can see that he says increased membership by 20% through expanded print and Facebook social media marketing campaign. So you could say increased membership, but it's really much more impressive if you have a number to it. So for example, when I used to do admissions work, I would talk about the exact number of applications I had, how I led to an increase in applications from a certain region, by 400%, which is not actually, basically the numbers can make you seem much more impressive than maybe it actually is. Going from 1 to 4 applicants is a 400% increase. So not that you should be lying, but like the numbers really kind of ground you in a tangible accomplishment.
So to give an example of that, so like right now we could look at the numbers and there are 6 people in this workshop that Jocie is leading. Now she could say, I presented information to 6 students, or she could play with the numbers a little bit. Okay, well, she prepared this for all several hundred students that are in the LCAE programs. So she could actually say, developed a resume workshop and presented it to the 1,200 students in the LCAE program at the University of Texas at Austin. And so sometimes you could use 6, but to make yourself look more impressive, you could include the number of people in the program as a whole instead of the ones that showed up, which technically can be lying, but it's really just changing the numbers to make them as impressive as you can.
Yeah. Or like I did a similar resume drop-in thing in December and 2 people came. And so talking about that increase in participation is huge. That's like a 300% increase, I think. Even though it's really going from 2 to 6. So yeah, you definitely can kind of play with the numbers there. So we have almost half an hour. So basically for the folks who don't have a resume, do you feel like in your head or even on a piece of paper, you have ideas of like, okay, I had this job, I had this experience, I had this community service, I was part of this club. Yeah, do you folks feel like you have that?
Before I got here, I made a Google Doc listing all of my experience.
Oh, amazing.
I don't have a lot either. Like I haven't had any jobs, and like that's what I'm making a resume for like jobs, and I'm just worried because I don't have any work experience at all.
Okay. That's totally fair. So I think what we should do is maybe I'm thinking maybe Gabriella and Alexis, maybe you two can be paired up because both of you, it sounds like it would be good for y'all to like do the same exercise that kind of Ashley was referring to in terms of like even though even if you've never had a job, like have you done any community service, like work with your church? And like I said, any high school clubs, kind of any things like that. And then we can start kind of working on building out the format. And then Ashley and Sarah, are you the one who said that you do have a resume?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It's small, but like I have one.
Okay. Then maybe you and Ashley can work to kind of keep building yours out. I'm thinking breakout rooms. I'm going to put you on the breakout rooms. And Michelle and I will kind of toggle to help y'all with them. Does that work? Alexis and Gabriella, do you feel like you have some ideas of things you can list?
Yeah, I have like a couple.
Okay, cool. And we can flesh those out for sure. Okay. Michelle, do you care which room you go to? Okay. Why am I so bad at this? How do I move you? Okay. Okay. Did that work? Okay. How do I move to this room?